Hi everyone, it's Darlene from Darlene's Creative Studio. Today is day 7, and today I've decided I'm going to use 2 prompts. I'm going to create my own envelope, and I'm going to use a napkin to decoupage. So I'm going to actually distress both of these cards and put them in my little booklet and stamp them with number 7. The only reason I didn't bring a lot of envelopes with me, and I thought the best way to get the size that I wanted was to create my own, and then I thought it would be nice to just decoupage it with one of the napkins that I did bring along with me. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly distress my cards. And then we will put them both in the little booklet, and we'll go ahead and get started on our envelopes. All right, so we've distressed that. Let's get that out of the way. So today I'm going to be, oh, I need that. Today I'm going to be working with a couple of different things. Here's my day 7. I'll set him out of the way. There we go. And we will glue these in really quickly. So we're going to open this up. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I'm going to go right to number 7 here. What can I put on there? Ouch. To hold that down. There we go. So we're going to be creating an envelope. I'm going to glue that one in. And I am just using a very large book page that I got out of a large atlas. They're my favorite book pages. I've used them to make quite a few envelopes. I did actually collage one of the envelopes, and I was going to use it for a collage, but I thought it might be a nice idea to use the napkin up. So there we go. Create your own envelope and use a napkin, and then I will just grab a marker here and create your own envelope. I'm going to be using the large book page from Atlas. To create a large envelope. January 7th, 2020. And then this one, decoupage, large envelope with, I'm going to say black and white napkin. January 7th, 2020. There we go. So that's all done. So let's move some of the things out of the way. I'm going to probably use a label. I have some remainders of my little magazine covers. Probably use a Velcro to close it, and I do have this stamp that I might use to stamp at the top of the page that I use. So I'm just going to set those aside. I have this napkin, there's a piece left over here that we can use, or we have this one. I'm going to be using a piece of this old family history book page, a piece of black cardstock, and this is the large page from an atlas. And what I'm going to do, because it's longer than 12 inches, I can't really put it through my cutter. I can fold it, but I'm just going to go ahead and trim this little rough edge off. And there's 2 different envelopes that we can make. I was playing around with them before I started recording just to see what type we could make. I'm going to set this guy aside. And those. This is one that I created beforehand. And it's a simple envelope made with the book page, and all I've done is glued it to a piece of the black cardstock so that it will go inside the binder. And I've punched the holes so it now fits inside the binder. And then on this side I've put today's goals, and I've used some of the lined paper, and then it actually has a pocket here that we can use for something else. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I created that envelope. Now there's also another envelope that I was playing with, and let me just show you that one really quickly here. So this is basically, this is a wider one than this one. Let's leave this guy out so you can see it. So this one would fit and be the same size as some of the dividers that I was going to create. So this would actually fit onto a divider. So it's about 5.5 inches wide. So that would be that kind of envelope. So I did create that one. I also, because the page is so long, created this one. And I thought I might try this one because I can actually use this one as a pocket up here. We can glue that down and create a pocket here, as well as having the pocket up there. And then when we glue it to the black cardstock, it'll be a thinner piece, and then we can still have the pocket on the back. So I'm going to show you how to make this one. And they're both pretty much the same way. This one, for the wider one, I used the paper this way and made it 5.5 inches wide, and then created my flap in my bottom. But for this one, the skinnier one, which is the one I'm going to make, I actually just folded it softly like this, and then I just, so that the paper's overlapped by this little edge and this little edge, and it just works out to be on, and I make sure that they're level up here first. Slide that one down. So I'm just kind of guesstimating, I'm not measuring. So there, my paper is lined up with the edge of that word, and I just slide that one down as well. I mean, make sure that they're nice and even at the top so that the paper folds nicely. Make sure that's nice and even. And I do have a bone folder somewhere here in amongst all this mess. Thought I did. Oh, underneath my ruler. Okay, so I'm just going to use my bone folder and give that a nice score. And then I like to create my flap, and it's only going to be about 2 inches. I'll measure this one just to show you. The flap is about, okay, so the flap's about 1.5 inches. You don't have to be specific, you just have to kind of fold it down, make sure it's straight. So there you go, that's going to be my flap. And I guessed, oh, there you go, look at that, 1.5 inches. So there's your flap, and then this is where you decide how long you want your envelope to be. Now and I'll just use this for a sample, between my binder, I have to have my cards 8.5 to fit within the binder. So I'm going to be making up a couple of these out of some cardstock that I brought along with me. So I'm just going to use this as my guide. So I'm just going to add that to the top like that. And then I know, and we can use a pencil here, I know that it has to be folded up at a certain spot. So I just mark it with my fingernail and fold it up and make sure it's nice and even, and just pull it a couple of smidges higher. And then move that out of the way. We're going to score that. So that will actually now fit within my template for my dividers. And again, this, I'll make one that won't be as wide as this, so that when it sits on, we'll have that little pocket on the back. So there is the envelope. Now, the other one I decoupaged, I just opened up the envelope and I put the paper on, and then I folded up the envelope. This one's going to be a little harder because I don't have to go right down here, and I have to cover this piece. So I'm going to try and figure this out. We're going to do this together. So what we have to do first of all, excuse me, is cut off the excess pieces to our flaps. So I'm just cutting along that fold and along here, and you can make a little angle for the flap. Let's cut that off. So I'm just going to cut a little angle here and a little angle here. So we'll throw those away so that when I fold that back together, I have little angles on the sides of my flap. So there's my flap. And then this way, I'm just going to take my ruler and I'm just going to make a mark across here. I'm just going to guesstimate, make a line across here, and then I'm just going to put it at an angle. And then all I do is cut this one first. Cut it at an angle here. And then I can use that to mark right across there. So we'll cut this one here. Like that. So now we have a little bit of space here that we can actually get into the envelope with. And there's our flap, and then we're going to make this our pocket. So what we have to do is take our napkin and open it up, and I just take a piece of tape like that, and you're going to stick it to the napkin and pull, and that's going to pull off, give you a space to pull off that excess piece of napkin like that. And then this one has 2 layers, so I'm going to use my tape again and rip it again and pull that second layer off. Some napkins only have 1 layer of the white paper, but you should make sure by sticking the tape on there and pulling that off. So there you go. That was nice and easy, quick, fast. And there is our napkin that we're going to be using. And I'm going to try and figure out how to cover this so that this page is going to be completely covered. And then when I bring it around to this side, I'm only going to cover it, I only need to cover it halfway. And then I need to save that bottom piece because I need to put it on here. So it's going to be a little bit technical, but we're going to see if we can do this. See, before I just opened it up and collaged it this way, but if I do that, then my napkin will be upside down when I flip it up. Unless I do it, yeah, it's going to be harder to do that way. So we're going to figure this out. What I'm using is my art glitter glue, and I'm actually just running it along my paper, and I'm going to set this all up, and I'll show you how I do that. And I'm also going to use a brush. So once I put the glitter glue on there, I'm just going to give it a light brushing to flatten it out, and then I'll set the napkin over top of it. And it will make it a little soft, so we will let it dry, but the other one turned out really well using this glue. And that's all. I didn't want to use Mod Podge. I didn't bring any of that kind of glue, so we're going to go ahead and use the glitter glue. So I'm just going to put my lid back on my glitter glue there. So now I'm going to figure out how I want to place the napkin on my envelope here. Now that's the back, so I'm not so worried about it being upside down. But we do want to get to right up to the flap here, like that. All right. And it only has to go to the bottom here. So what I might do is start gluing it, and then when I get to the bottom, I'll stop gluing it there and cut that off, flip it around, fold up my envelope, and then just use this bottom piece to put on that the front of the pocket. But that's what I think I'm going to go ahead and do. So I'm going to take my little jar here, my little thing. I'm just going to move this up a bit. Here. Let's grab our plastic and put this underneath so I don't get glue everywhere. And I'm going to position my napkin so that it covers both sides. Actually, I can pull it over a little bit. There. And see, it's just going past my little flap there so I can trim it off. And I'm going to take this roll of tape and I'm just going to set it there to hold it in place. So we're literally going to go lift up the napkin. And I'm going to do little bits at a time. I'm not going to do a lot. I just want to do a little bit at a time. And we're going to add some glue here, like that. Then I take my brush and I just slowly spread it out so I don't have any lines. Bring my napkin back up and spread it out like that. And that will hold it on, and then I'm going to move it there. And then I'm going to lift my napkin up this way. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to go under here and put a little bit of glue just across the top, not a lot. You want to maybe do 2 inches at a time. Make sure you get right to the edges. Then you're just going to take your brush really quickly and flatten that out. And then you're going to pull your napkin back down nice and easy and let it fall softly, and you're going to go from the center out. So here you go. And you're just going to keep doing it this way, a little bit at a time. And then that way you won't get all those wrinkles and everything in it. But you want to make sure you get right up to where you glued the last time so you don't have any bubbles. And when you use your brush, you can just slide up underneath that. You can feel where you left off, and you just quickly pull that down, nice and soft, and go from the inside out. Okay, let's keep going here and pull that up. I want to make sure I get all my pieces. We're just going to flatten it out. And I'm pushing very lightly on the brush. I'm not really pushing hard on that paintbrush. Okay, let's move this up a bit. And we're going to lift that up again. Using the paintbrush just flattens the glue out so you don't get these little stringy lines. If you don't flatten it out, you will see where the glue is on the paper, and sometimes it leaves a mark. It depends on what kind of paper you're using, but it will leave a little mark and you will see the lines. All right, and we've got to make sure we stop at this line where we're going from the bottom. Oops, let me just pull this forward a bit. And you make sure you want to get right up to your last glue spot. And I'm not using a lot of glue. I'm not, pouring this on. I'm just using really light amounts of glue. And we're going to pull that down and fold that out. And you can go back in and do the edges if you find the edges aren't glued before you trim it all out. Okay, so I'm going to go just to this line here. I don't want to go any farther than that. So I'll just go ahead and do that little bit there. And fold it down. Try not to get glue on my, and I noticed that I didn't go right to the edge there, so I'll just add a little bit, and there might still be some glue on my brush there. There we go. There we go. Okay. So we've covered that. And we're going to let it dry. And then I'm going to go around and trim the edges. And I'm just going to pull this up so that it does not stick, because I do not want it to stick to that fold there. Now if I put that on there, let's see. I'm closing that up and that goes up to the front. See, this is going to be upside down, and that's the front of it, so I don't want to do that. So we're going to let this dry, and then we're going to cut around the edges here, and then I'm going to put my envelope back together and glue it, and have this folded up once these edges are folded in, and then I will use this piece to decoupage the front here. So let's let that glue, or dry, sorry, and then we'll cut it out. Okay, so this is dry, and I'm going to go ahead and trim this up. And we're just going to follow along the edges of the envelope. Just give it a quick trim. I can go back with my little scissors and you can probably tear it, but I don't want to because using this glue, I don't know how well it will tear and stop at the envelope edge. So set those aside. And I'm just going to cut down the sides here. There's one side. Okay, and then I'm going to cut across the bottom, and I want to save this piece because I want to use that for the front of the envelope, the pocket. So let's just cut that down. I'm having a good time seeing here. It's so dark in here today. Okay, there we go, that's cut off. And I'll go ahead and trim these up a little better. I have a smaller pair of scissors that if I want to use to get around the little bits and pieces, I'll just use those. And you could have just waited to trim this little top piece off and done that afterwards, but I find it easier to see when it's already cut. Okay, there we go. I had so much trouble. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to bend our folds again. So there's that one. And that one. So there is our envelope front and back covered. And then this is going to be flipped up like that, and that's going to create another pocket. And then I'm going to add some of this to the front of here. So what we're going to do first is glue this closed. Hope I'm doing this right. So it's only about a ½ inch there. So we're just going to get my glue working here. There we go. We're just going to glue down the front here. And I'm going to glue right down to the bottom of this pocket because we want the whole thing glued closed. And we're just going to slide our finger along there and glue it all closed. I'm just going to trim that. Okay, and now when we flip this up, this will get glued down. This inside will get glued down, and then I'm going to go ahead and put some on the front. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to decoupage this part, and then I'm going to wrap it around the back a little bit. So let's find out what we want on there. So let's do, that London's pretty dark. Let's go this side here. Yeah. Move my scissors out of the way so they don't catch on anything. All right, we're gonna go and use that right there. So I'm just gonna start at the top again, using my glitter glue. And where is my brush? Here it is. And then you're going to take your brush and you're just going to gently flatten it out. And then you're going to set that on there like that, nice and soft. And that will hold it in place. And then you're just going to lift it up. And you want to make sure you get under all the pieces. And again, just do a little bit at a time. Don't try and glue the whole thing down because you'll get ripples and sometimes the tissue sticks where you don't want it to. And you'll get a little bump. So a little bit at a time. And we'll just use our brush and flatten that out and make sure you get right up into that little edges there. Excuse me. All right. I'm not going to glue right to the end yet because I want to make sure I get all this glued in there properly. Okay. Now I have the sniffles from my sneeze. All right. And we're going to glue this last little bit, and I'm going to glue it right across the bottom of that little piece there. And then I will trim it up. And again, use your brush. Make it nice and soft. There we go. And we're going to let that dry a little bit. But we can, and I'm going to just trim it off here. So we have to get rid of this excess piece. Like that. Now I'm just wondering if I can overlap that, because that is the back. I don't want to overlap it too much, but I could probably overlap it a little bit. So let's just trim this guy down. And let's see if I overlap that. I'm not really thrilled with that look. What if I folded it? Let's see, and then glued it down. No, don't like that either. I think I'm just going to trim that once it's dry. But we are going to turn these edges in just a little bit here. So let's trim this off here. Sorry about that, I had a little interruption there. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and cut this little bit off. Like that. And then we're just going to glue the edges in. And again, this will be on the inside, so you won't see it, but it'll just be nice to finish off those edges of the envelope. Okay, so we're just going to turn that little piece in and fold that over. Fold that over like that. And then this will get glued up like this. So now we can trim this piece off once it's dry. So we're going to trim across the top Keep sticking to things here. So we're going to cut across the top. Like that. And then we're going to glue this up. And then I'm going to trim this bottom piece off. And I'm going to put the glue on the inside of here. And you can make a pocket in behind that, but I'm not going to because I don't want it to get caught on the papers in the back, the tissue paper or whatnot. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue it right across and glue it up. All right. And then we can just fold that up. And that, I don't want to push too hard because the paper's still a little bit wet. Like that. Okay. So I have taken my 2-inch punch and just punched a little hole in the front of the envelope by sliding the punch into the pocket and punching. And you'll find that while the paper is gluing, you'll get a little bit of a curve to some of your paper. Just bend it and flex it around a bit until it falls flat again. So there is our pocket, with a pocket up here and a pocket down here. And I did take a little tiny piece and just flip it over the end. I left a little piece on the back there and that just flipped up. So next we're going to take a piece of the black cardstock. And this is 8.5 by 11. So I'm just going to trim a tiny bit just so that it'll fit between those two binder clasps. It is 8.5, but I find it's a little tight. So I'm just taking a smidge off of that width with my cutter. Just take that off. So I literally just cut off not even 1/8 of an inch. And then it's going to go this way. Right there. And I'm just going to leave a little bit on the side here, about 1 inch, to punch my holes in. And then on the back side, I think I'm going to make my pocket go over probably about 3 inches maybe. So I only need a 4-inch piece. So I need the inch for the holes and then the 3 inches. So I'm going to cut this at 4 inches. So there's my 4-inch piece. And I'm going to glue this on to there. Make sure it's nice and straight. And that's going to be a pocket on the back. And what I'm going to do is take one of my other pieces that I have here that I've already punched, and I'm just going to line that up and draw my circles because it already has circles there. Oops, just drew on it. Like that. Take my little hole punch. And I'm going to punch those holes out. And I can see them through the hole. There we go. So we got that punched. And then I'm just going to mark 1 inch so I can keep this even with a little pencil mark on both the top and bottom. Like that. So that's where that's going to sit. Like that. And then what I'm going to do is glue just the 3 edges. So we're going to take our glue and we're just going to glue the edges because we're making a pocket. And then down this 1 inch. Like that. And then we're just going to set the envelope on those marks. Like that. And then for the flap here, I just have these little tiny 5/16 Velcro circles. And I'm going to find the one that I've already used. I've gone and stuck those together. Yep, there's one. Okay, so there's a white one. And that's the soft piece. And I'm going to set that on the top of my flap. And then I'm going to take the harder plasticky piece. See, these two end up going together, so you can't put them away that way. So pull these apart. They should always go back to back. Okay, let's get that away. And then this is the hard clear piece, and you're going to pull one of those off, and you're actually going to take the sticky part and leave it on your thumb. And you're going to put the teeth on top of the other teeth together. And then you're going to close your envelope and push down. And that will actually stick. There, right where you need it. So when we flip this over, we've glued under there, and we now have a little pocket. So on the back of this, I'm going to take that lined family history paper. And I'm going to measure, it was 3 inches and 4 inches, but the 1 inch is for the binder, so about 3 inches. I want to cut this to 3 inches. So I'm going to cut right down along the diamonds and then here and give myself a 3-inch strip. Let me do that. Stop humming and keep humming. So I cut it down the center, and then I trimmed off each edge so it's 3 inches wide. And I think what I will do is have it go like that, and then I'm just going to add this piece underneath so that I can have a piece going all the way down. And I'm going to trim it off right here on that mark. So let me trim this guy off. And that will just kind of pop up underneath. And I'm just going to match up those 2 little diamonds there. And my little line on that side there. And that's going to be my piece of paper that I put there. I think I'm going to slide that down a bit. Okay, so let's glue the paper on first. And we're going to keep it in the middle, up there. And then this one will go on top, and we're going to match up that little point and that little line. And that's going to go like that. We can even go down one more if we don't want it that high. Yeah, might do that. So this was an old family history book. It was blank, and you filled it in with all, I guess, your family history and whatnot. But I just liked the lined pages. I thought they'd be great for adding to journals and stuff. So we're just going to line up those 2 little diamonds. And then my 2 lines on that side. And there we go. So we've got some lined pages on the back. And this is a pocket. And then I did make these labels with a stamp that I have. And I have some red ones. I have some black ones. And I also have some with lines on them. Oh, it's kind of nice. Oops, sticking to me. And then I have some other lined ones. And I also have some graph paper. This is all tea stain paper, and I just used up some scraps that I had. I kind of like that one, and I also like, actually I like the graph paper as well. So we're just going to take one of these, and we're going to place it, peel it off the sticker label, and place that on here. Not the straightest, Darlene, but it will work. Okay. And then I can probably add something to the back. Maybe have one of these ones that isn't that great sticking out maybe from there. I like that idea of just having it peeking out. See if we can put it on straighter this time. There we go. So we've got that one, and we've got that one. I'll throw those in the garbage. Got all my little stamps. We'll put those away. And then I do have these little, these are from an old magazine covers. It was a collector's edition, and it showed you all these different covers that you could use. So these are Saturday Evening Post. That one's kind of nice. There was one called Snappy, and Gay Parisian, College Humor. These are my leftovers. There's a Cosmo. That one's pretty. Let's use that one. And I'm just going to take away some of more of the white. Don't want so much of it showing. So we're just going to trim that up real quick. Like that. That can go there. Excuse me. I also have some old book page that I could put in there. I think I'm going to do that as well. This was from one of the other days. This is just a little scrap piece of book page that I had left over. And I'm just going to slide that there. And then my Cosmo will go on top of that. Right there. Like that. And then on the back, I might use another of that book page. I just have it kind of sticking out the edge there. There. And then we'll just take our today's goals. Or we can make our to-do stamp. How about we do that? We do our to-do stamp. Put that over there. And this is my label stamp that I have. I'm just going to put this on the back here. On the other side. And I'm going to grab my stamp pad. I'm just going to inked, and I'm going to line it up to here. There we go. We made a simple little pocket that can go inside. Oops, my little page falling out. And this is the other one. It has the Saturday Evening Post and a red label. And then today's goals, and then another label. So we're just going to open that up, and that will slide inside the binder like that. And I will make, when I make some more journaling cards, I will make a card that will go inside here as well for the front of that, and I'll have a little tab maybe sticking out for there. So that is creating an envelope, your own envelope, and a piece of paper, and then collaging it with a napkin and adding it to our daily pages. Now I'm going to be working on cutting some more of the papers that I brought along, the cardstock, and making a few dividers, and then maybe decorating these with some of my prompts. So I'm going to go ahead and play with some of those. I made this one with a little pocket, and then this one has a little pocket. This one's just a plain one with a tab. So I'm going to go ahead, and I can use that one as well. Make a couple of those, and then maybe use some of those to decorate, or maybe collage some of those with one of my prompts. But I'm going to go ahead and start cutting up some of these as well for some of my other things. Thanks so much for following along and watching today, and we'll hope to see you tomorrow.